10. Om Namah Samanta Vajranam Ham. Now, as we go, I spend a bit less time on each level. Not because I want to reach my schedule, but because that's how it works. The more we advance, we'll just flow in. And at the end, there's pretty much nothing to say about Zen. And that's okay. It's okay like that, right? The more you've developed the fundamentals, then everything else makes more sense through experiencing it. Okay? We still talk about it. There's a lot of Dharma because you still want to follow each step as it happens, right? In every tradition, we've seen Kai in the same way, something similar to that. In the martial tradition, the tip of the fingers end up between the knuckles, not between the fingers, but further, like on the top of the hand between the knuckles, and they put a bit of strain in the fingers, okay? Now, if you wanted to practice your finger strength, you'd go do exercise with finger exercisers or finger exercises, okay? So there's no goal in doing the strength thing. It's just the martial artists put too much energy because they do it in a ritual work for once. You go, but when you want to do contemplation, you relax. And in the transformational approach, the fingers are not entirely one over the other. It's not a full embrace of the hands. The tip gently touch exactly in the middle of the knuckles. It's not above the hand, but really in between the fingers, just gently getting there. More on the top than inside, because it is still fingers a bit outside, but it rests gently there. Okay? And is a symbol of everything intertwined together. So if your fingertips are a bit inside, it becomes JIN. Okay? It starts to go there. Although JIN, you touch every tip inside if you can. So it's really obviously a different mudra, okay? And this one, you just want to have your fingertips a bit outside, but not as far as the knuckles, like the martial practice tradition, okay? Which is okay. This one is about having a shell, okay? So there's a protection aspect, and you join yourself with everything outside. So it's still my locality to your locality, right? So when you just gently go and rest the tips together, a bit outside, but mostly fingers intertwined, it's about everything intertwined together, okay? This is a transformational approach variation, okay? So it almost looks like the martial traditional path. Om Namah Samanta Vajranam Ham. Okay. Nama is a salutation, an openness, an acknowledgement. It's to be available, okay? In Sanskrit, we say namaste when we salute, namaste. And then the word namaste is translated as I bow from the divine being that I am to the divine being that you are in great prostration and yada 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 yada, which is complete bullshit because namaste means hi, okay? That's it. It means I salute you. Nama is that salutation. Te is you. Okay? If you know your Sanskrit, you understand that. So namaste is salutations, or I salute you. I say hi. Okay? So nama is that acknowledgement. Namaste is I'm saluting you. Nama is the salutation without precise person of who is saluted or welcomed, or so it becomes an acknowledgement, like Om Namah Shivaya. It doesn't mean I say hi to Shiva, okay? Because it would be Om Namastestu Shivaya, okay? This is I say salute to Shiva. So Namah Shiva, Om Namah Shiva means Shiva is saluted. Shiva is welcome. You see, there's this more global perspective about it. It's not about what you do when you say Om Namah Shiva. It's Shiva is being welcome or acknowledged. Okay? So Nama Samanta Vajranam means that Samanta Vajranam is welcome. Okay, so you're not saying hi to a girl called Samantha. by the way. It's Sanskrit. Samanta means all-pervading. Sam is complete, and ta, in this case, is what is. So samata is everything is what is, so all-pervading, everything inside, okay? So in the mudra, everything joined together, samanta, and you acknowledge the pervasion of consciousness in all things. You always say you were all one. So it endorses the previous wisdoms in the sense that these are as they are, namasamanta vajranam. Okay, before that, I'll explain the rest of the mantra. This one is not vajraman, it's vajranam. Okay? Man is about the mind state. Okay? Nam is the first particle of nama, which means acknowledging something as it is, okay, as a personal experience. There's no precision there because I don't want to give a class of Sanskrit grammar. Vajranam is to know that you are experiencing the Vajra state. Okay, let's keep it simple, right? Vajraman is the Vajraman state. Vajranam, it's I am living it. Okay. So Namasamanta, acknowledging the all-pervading and everything, Vajranam, means I do experience everything as consciousness, or I do experience everything is a conscious experience. And that gives you supreme power of transmigration. Will eventually lead to experiences of oneness. Okay? In this sense, and then you have the ham, means I live it. H-A-M means I live it. Okay? Ha is express, but the M is an energy, and ha becomes a presence of that feeling. So ham means I live it. It's not a dictionary, but in terms of bija. Okay? Like Om Namah Premasastya ham. Okay? I live a self-contained state of love that I acknowledge is true. Okay? So that's another place where we have the ham bija at the end of the mantra. Okay? So Om Namah Samanta Vajranam Ham. Acknowledgement of the all-pervading conscious state of things as they are, and I live it. Where the Nam and the Ham endorse your personal involvement in that conscious experience. Of course, this is all mystical and highly philosophical, okay? So through contemplation, you'll get more understanding, okay? Because this is not a clear canonic phrase, subject, verb, complement series, okay? It's assembled concepts that are together that carry each the feeling of what it means and not the intellectual meaning as a dictionary series of words, okay? Yet there's an apparent canonic structure to there is a salutation or acknowledgement of a conscious experience of things as they are in all things, and I live it. I'm conscious of it. I'm aware. Okay. The unity that it suggests, and the chakras, the heart. Om Namah Samanta Vajranam Ham. You don't pay attention inside only. You don't pay attention outside only, and this is where the challenge is. When we say pay attention to everything, first reflex, you look at everything, but your mind is outside. Everything includes you. Okay? Because you're always stuck in the idea that this is inside and this is outside, and it's two different things. In your practice of Kai, you will pay attention to two things. What I am inside and everything else. And you try to pay attention to two things. Don't pay attention to two things. Pay attention to one thing. Everything. Therefore, your inner experience will be included in the everything, and the outer experience will be included in everything. However, I'm conscious of everything. Acknowledging experience as it is, and it pervades all, and I live it. But that is so hard for the Cartesian mind. So this is a little trick we start with. Pay attention to two things. Everything inside and everything outside at once. Until you successfully dissolve the idea that there's a distinction to make when you're paying attention to what is conscious. The goal is to pay attention to one thing, the whole. And of course, the whole of what you pay attention, then there's the phenomena of locality still happens. In this sense, I'm conscious of everything, but at that everything is how far your consciousness can conceive everything is. So I'm conscious of everything. Obviously, it's everything you feel inside as your body, the limit of your skin where there seems to be a difference between the inside and outside, and the outside. Everything becomes one. You dissolve that illusion of separation that we live, because the surface of the body is always telling us that we are not everything else. Well, in matter and in mass, we are apparently not everything else. We're localized in the body. However, in terms of interaction and consciousness and living experiences, there is no difference between what is inside and outside. There is what is there. Okay? And it's lived through experiences. Now, you live it rich here, and the locality is the further away it is from your local position, the less rich is the information about that everything. Because when I do this, I don't know what's going on right now in Chechnya or Gabon or another star in this galaxy. Okay, I don't. Okay, I say Namasamanta, and I'm kind of conscious of everything around here. Okay, and I start to get a glimpse, let's say, of whoever's online. I see people in the living room. I've got lots of information that if you're not used to it, you would feel it like a rush. I got used to it, but still, there's so much information that we'll get in one mind. So you have to accept that I'm conscious of everything. The step that you want to get to is that there's no distinction between what you experience and the experience of everything else that you don't usually associate to you. I'm conscious of everything. That Vajra experience is not about me. It's there. And obviously I'm included. Okay? Get that? That's the Namasamanta. Okay? Vajranam. And Kai means everything and whole. Yes.
C'est-tu possible d'arriver à avoir la sensation, l'expérience d'unité en faisant ça?
Yes, eventually you'll get unity by an awful amount of practice of that kuji-in. So probably not while doing the kuji-in, but this kuji-in step, it's an important JIN in the spiritual practice, in the spiritual sense. What it does for martial artists, it makes you become aware of everything the opponent is experiencing at the same time as what you are experiencing. So this is where you follow the combat. They say this one will give great intuition. It makes you aware of what's going on. Okay? So it's a form of intuition or revelation. You become aware of that state of consciousness in all things, and it's not limited to you. It's wherever there is consciousness, you are aware of it. Okay? You don't have to make an effort about being conscious of the other. This is what we do in transmigration in another class. Naturally, you'll just become aware. Eventually, you'll become one. You'll feel moments of oneness, not necessarily while doing your practice. You'll have it walking out, and you'll look at the tree, and you'll know that you are the tree, but you're still here, knowing it, because physically you're localized here. But your consciousness is not limited to your locality, and this is where it becomes like an acid trip without acid. Okay, pretty fun. Drug-free high. Okay, that's my drug. It's prana, and it's consciousness. Okay, Vajra states. Okay. So for the martial approach is you know exactly what's going on. You know the blade test where where the master dropping the blade is about to drop the blade, and you just feel the intentions of others. There's a lack of validity in that test. It's most people don't have the required training to actually perceive that level of consciousness. So it's pretty hard for even the fifth dan in ninjutsu to go grasp by pure intuition what's going to happen in a combat. However, the master, just before he drops the blade, he has this little, he's like this, but he makes this little move upwards, and this is what the ears and the subconscious mind tend to hear, the preparing instant before he actually starts to drop. And then, it means to have refined senses. So the goal of that ritual in ninjutsu, in the fifth dan test, was meant to see how much someone can be aware. And the ninjas of the time, who really did all the philosophical work and not just a few mudras, it was not about if a blade was above their head. It was if someone was 100 meters away, if someone was paying attention to them with an arrow in their bow, they felt the aggression and immediately stopped and were aware if the arrow comes, they would dodge. And it's on the instant. Reason for which the guy with the bow would train so much that oneness experience, so he would not go into the aggression state. He would be at peace knowing that he has a purpose while killing the other. It's to alleviate suffering at a certain level. So there would not be that kind of attention transmitted to the one who is perceiving. And then it became a spiritual combat. And who had the most awareness and the most refined traces of consciousness to be less implicated as an ego and just flowing with his haya. I'm just doing it because this is what I do. Okay? So it became a combat between the ninjas and the samurai of who had the most spiritual integrity in their work, while they still have to obey their political leader who gave them instruction to go and kill. Okay? So that was a pretty trialing training at that point. So this is the point where you go and just become aware. In our society, it's a different application. Of course, for that blade training, there's videos where you can see Hatsumi doing it, and when he drops the blade, it just goes down, and he stops just before the head of the guy who didn't move. He says, "You don't pass the test." And then another time, you see Hatsumi on the video going, and just the movement where he prepares and the little in-breath while he's ready, and the guy succeeds his test. So that put a question. Even Hatsumi himself worked very hard to have all the integrity required to always do the test at the same time. But over many, many, many times that the test is done, sometimes his body gives away sign that the other in front could perceive. And sometimes he didn't. So this test is not about spiritual awareness the way we talk supernaturally. It's about how refined someone's senses are acute and if the other actually gives a clue. Okay? So that the other can grasp it. So sometimes there's a question about the integrity of how the test is passed. That's why you always have, now what they do is they give many chances to someone to try it and at least succeed once. And we didn't know why. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And it's more about the acuity of the senses and how much information is available for the senses when Hatsumi moves in such and such way. Because in one series, there was a recording of one series of initiation he did to many people, and each time he did it differently at the micro level, when he seems on the surface to do it pretty much the same way each time. Okay, so we should not discredit Hatsumi. By the way, he is the most integrity person in terms of that kind of practice. So I'm not judging, seriously, right? I'm just saying I'm like that too. I try to do my best, and at one point someone else says, well, you're not equal in your comments to this and that person because you change your way of speaking, you change your way of dressing, your way of managing situations. And I said, yeah, thank you for pointing it out. I have to look at how my responsibility as a teacher and a master to endorse this feeling of equity at one point. I live it myself. So, I mean, when I was shown that, it was in a thread of discussion about the integrity of Atsumi when he does his thing, and I was the first one to say, hey, whoa, you can't bitch Atsumi. You can't. Because this guy is the top ninja for one reason. He works hard and he does have a form of virtue. So stop. Don't bitch masters like that. Like if you would do better. Like if you had mastery of yourself like that. So you need the sense of responsibility, like, what am I experiencing in that? And if I can say something to the master, I'll just do it. Just say it. Well, master, I have a comment to do about, that test. But mostly, when you get there to 5th Dan, you did your work, usually. So, at one point they have the people succeed their test as some kind of honorable gesture of, yes, you're now a ninja. Okay? Just keep this in mind. So because I was talking about that unity and that acuity of your conscious perception, I wanted to give a comment about that test. Where is it applied in ninjutsu? It's in the falling of the blade on the 5th Dan, and how some people succeed or not. Well, I mean, it's pretty far from what I trained when I trained. Well, I don't train martial arts anymore because I was never a martial art teacher. What it is I train martial artists with the art of kuji-in because they like it. And they do achieve a certain level of success, but they could be blindfolded and still have a combat. With this kind of practice, they could feel people behind a wall. They could perceive through conscious experience, there's a life form there. Without the actual sensory perception of the eyes, it was beyond nervous system. And this is what it brings. Become just conscious of whatever's around you. And the more conscious you are, the further it goes away, not only in distance, but also in kinds of conscious links. A conscious link is if you are really in love with your family, your children, your lover, your parents, the more strong are your attachments, the more that consciousness will also flow there. So when you have an attachment or a link or bind to someone, you can know what they are experiencing. Well, you already do that. You already do that knowing what's going on with people that you care about or want to care about. With that, it just becomes even more obvious because you train in that global awareness. And that global awareness is not just the locality where you are. It doesn't really dissolve in gradient. It will follow all these links that you have in your life, regardless of their position in space-time in relation to you. So if they're in another country, another place, I can go and see, okay, what's my kid doing right now? He's fooling around. This guy is not listening. This guy is drawing something with his pen or writing. And what's my mother doing? This is the kind of stuff that's really easy to do, because just go there and in time, with lots of practice, you'll get those revelations. It'll freak you out when you also start to see ghosts and stuff going around. You'll have to deal with it. It's okay. If ghosts exist, and they do, regardless of if you knew about it or not. And if they don't exist, they don't, regardless if you believe they do or not. That changes nothing. So eventually, if you start seeing ghosts, just remember that while you didn't see them, nothing happened. So why should it matter now that you're aware of something you were not? And until you get there, does it really matter? Because, if you don't have poltergeists in your house, you don't. So there's no worries to get there, okay? That's another part of the aspect. When you become aware, you'll become aware like a lot, okay? I highly encourage you to keep your feet on the ground. Don't go howl carpet smoker and start to go hippie and metaphysically engage in some kind of fantasy, because we call this schizophrenia or mythomania. A mythoman is someone who invents mythologies, myths, stories about what's going on, and believes it because it's more comfortable than actual real life. Okay? And that's one of the big problems that happen when you develop a supernatural experience. There is something supernatural, it really is, but because you want it so much to be intense real that you just fabricate an immense dream about it, and you completely lose objectivity about what really is happening as a supernatural event, and what is your fantasy about it. Okay? So it's not about being septic close to the supernatural. It's not about either being a believer. Yeah, you need to believe. No, you don't need to believe. When you experience it, you experience it. It's not if you believe or not. It's simply about if you acknowledge what's going on. Being a believer is as damageable on your consciousness than being a skeptic. A skeptic is simply closed. It won't happen because they're closed. A believer is in a lie because they want to believe in anything. Be objective in whatever supernatural experiences you have, you do. And you try to live it feet on the ground. Dissolve fairy tale. Dissolve fantasies. Dissolve your need of magic to make your life better because it's so boring right now. You know, the reason why you would flee into a fabricated fantasy, and I need to give this warning because with that one it really starts. The reason why you have to disengage fantasies is that you're going to use them as denial, and you need to find why you want to amplify the supernatural events you've experienced to make them even more fantastic. Find why. You know, that's one of my big things. I'm working on that. Why do I tend to tell stories? Well, I never tell lies. I've worked on that a lot. I don't tell a lie, but I tell things. It happens sometimes in precise moments in my life when I feel more abandoned, more alone, when I want attention, when I have these human reflexes of wanting outside validation. It's rare, but when it happens, I have tools. I don't lie, but I say things knowing how they'll interpret it in a more beautiful way than it actually is. If what I say is wonderful, it should not need embellishment. If it's not wonderful, it should not need embellishment. It should be just as it is, you know? So that's my work on myself that I'm doing in the last days, actually. We have this reflex of using the supernatural to make it even more fantastic and flee reality. But if we don't want to do this, discrediting the supernatural also makes us sick of not being able to live it. Sick of our skepticism. Okay? So objectivity in the supernatural world is absolutely essential. You must find it wonderful. You don't need to embellish it to find it wonderful. It is wonderful. You don't need to amplify it. It's just as it is. Life is beautiful. Life is great. It has its lows of suffering. Just take it as it is. Alright? So that was the Sha teaching. Now, the Kai teaching. Too much in my mind. I'm starting to mess up my mantras and my levels. Not good. We do the practice. That Vajra experience, everything is just as it is right there. Conscious of all things, you live it. Nam Ham, okay? Everything. Mantra. Om Namah Samanta Vajra Nam Ham. Breathe. Just aware. Very simple practice, no effort. Aware. Mantra. Om Namah Samanta Vajra Nam Ham. Mantra. Om Namah Samanta Vajranam Ham. Heart is good. Good. Practice sitting alone. Eventually you want to practice walking. Not necessarily with the mudra, just walking. With the same attitude. Once you do it a lot alone, sitting, you have the opportunity to live the feeling, and how to synthesize it becomes more clear. Then you go walking alone without talking to anyone. Practice that. Doing it in nature is so much more easy, but you can do it in the city. Problem. Right? Good. Let's immediately move on. JIN. Okay? Where the tip of the fingers touch each other if you can. Right? Or else it's just inside. Okay? This case, we had everything is intertwined, interconnected, and we live this consciousness in all aspects. Recuperating the wisdom of everything we learned before. In this case, the Kyo experience of interconnectivity is so obvious, but still Kai, everything is, and spherical and everything. And inside, it's the same kind of feeling, but what you want to do is, everything now is inside, but it's not inside you. Once that we cross the step of Kai, it's about everything. JIN is about what is inside everything. It's not just inside you, but inside everything. Which means, now that I'm aware of everything, the question is, what is the true nature of everything? Okay? So this is where, when you have this wisdom well integrated, you go inside. What composes everything? What is inside the core of every experience, of every object? And the answer is Agnaya Yanmaya. Okay? And I'll explain. Maya is the world of illusion. Okay? Maya means that there is interpretation of what you perceive when you interact. Okay? So Ma is the energy or the conscious vibration, and Ya means to interrelate. Okay? Om Namah Shivaya. Okay? Om Namah Shivaya. The Ya means that Shiva is the one acknowledged in the Nama. Okay? So when you have a Y like this, it's grammatical accord. It means to relate. Okay? So Maya is how you relate to this conscious manifestation. So it becomes perception and illusion. Right? So this is the explanation of the word Maya. Yan Maya starts with a Ya and ends with a Ya. But Yan, you have the N. And the N is about tangible. Okay? Yan means made of. Yan Maya what everything is made of. That's the explanation of Jan Maya. The nature of thing is what if everything is really made of. The word before Jan Maya is Agnae, which is Agni with the Ya, which relates to the Jan Maya, that relates to Agni. Agni is fire. Agnaya Yanmaya means that everything is made with the same properties of that fire. Now, what are the properties of fire? It happens at the moment it happens and it's over, because it's a flame. It's ever fluid. So everything you believe is tangible is still fluid. You look at a mountain and you're convinced that it's fixed. But at its rhythm, at the Earth's time speed, not at your human life speed or time reference, but at the Earth's reference, a mountain is a wave. This is just waves, like water on the surface of the sea, but moving at the level of density of rock, which is pretty rigid, pretty hard, okay? So, we see as humans two mountains, we say they're separated by a valley, but actually this is one continuous crust in terms of perception from the Earth. So at the cosmological level of perception, there's a skin of viscous, flexible water made of rock over the Earth that ripples. Okay? So it's a question of how fixed you are in your perception when you believe that tree is immobile. Well, look at it for a few hours, the leaves will follow the sun. Look at it for a few years, it will change shape and grow. Look at it for 5,000 years, and it's a flame. So a forest for you looks like something immobile and permanent. But if you take it in the time reference of the Earth or creation itself, those branches and trees that rise from the Earth and flourish and then die and go down while others rise, it looks like a flame. Accelerate that over thousands of years, it looks like a biological flame on the skin of the Earth that waves like water. Okay? So your fixed perception as a human that everything is permanent and rigid is an illusion. It simply moves to a rate that is below your scope of comparison to see that it is still made of fire. Okay. Everything is still moving. It's made of that flexible experience. So nothing is permanent. Everything flows. And absolutely everything manifested obeys the mechanics of fluids, even mountains made of rock. Everything in creation obeys the mechanics of fluids, the systems of pressures and convection and movement and rising and the falling and the following and the consecution and the convection of all things, right? Everything. And this is what Agnaya Yanmaya means. Swaha, Om Agnaya Yanmaya Swaha, is an authentic experience of self as everything made of. Everything is not made of fire. Everything is made with the same properties than fire. Because it's not Agni and Maya, it's Agnaya and Maya. Alright? This one we could have classes for entire weekends or weeks, but this is not an Hatha Yoga class. But those who do Hatha Yoga can understand even more because you live it. Keep practicing. Going inside, but when you go inside, don't cut yourself up from the outside because this is inside something else. It's not inside you, but this is inside something. The universe. In this JIN, the level of JIN, we ask the question, where's the universe? Where is it? And the philosophical answer to that is the universe is inside. but you don't state inside what, because that would be defining something where you're not in the Vajra state anymore. The universe is inside. Ah, so then you misinterpret. Oh, the universe is right here. No, we didn't say it was inside you. It's inside. Okay? And you have to remove from your mind the egocentric need that it's about you. So when I say pay attention inside, if you pay attention just here, you are still separated, but it's good because it starts there. If I say pay attention outside, you're still separated. But if I say pay attention inside, then you get it. Pay attention inside. Everything is inside. Not inside you. Okay? It's this Zen state of disengaging the mind. Cartesian need to understand and classify. At one point, the universe is inside itself. It's self-contained. So you can't even imagine that there's a pocket in which it is, because that pocket would be inside something else. So at one point, you reach this point where you can't have a container, but the content is inside itself. We call this self-contained. Okay? And you are self-contained. So Kai allows you this oneness, and JIN allows you to be inside, which includes here too. Okay? And you observe it in this letting go of conceptualization of what things are, and you flow into untangible fire that always moves, that never will stay. Then the dissolution of attachment is easier. Then the forgiveness is possible, because this chakra, the throat, that concerns the JIN aspect, is about knowledge of self. And to know yourself, you can't classify it. To know yourself is to know yourself as something that changes and moves and modulates. That evolves. It's not something that you can describe, because once you describe, it's something that you were. Because it was described at the moment you did, and then it became a memory of what you were at the moment you did. You probably are still that thing, but maybe not. So how can you be sure? Check it. Oh, I'm still a musician. All right. But one day I won't. I mean, I know that for sure. I was a martial artist. Now I know a bit of martial arts. I'm not a martial artist anymore. I know. It changed. If I needed to know myself as a martial artist out of pride, I would still say that I'm a martial artist and not be able to correctly apply it, because I let it go away. It changed. It did hurt my pride when I realized my life was not compatible. And then you have these arguments of people, well, don't blame life. You don't do martial art because you choose to, and you are right. Absolutely, I don't blame life. I chose to invest in people's happiness more than people's martial arts skills, including my own. So yes, I made that choice. Therefore, I'm not a martial artist anymore, because I let it go away. I can put up a good sparring session, but I'm not a martial artist, you know. So for that reason, if I counted on a definition that I believed I had about myself, my pride would be hurt. And eventually, you will all stop being martial artists because you'll be too old, too sick, and you will die. You won't be a martial artist when you'll be dead. Okay? So this 78-year-old guy says, I'm a martial artist. I didn't fight for 28 years because I can't lift my fist anymore, but I'm a martial artist, you know, in the soul. Yeah, okay, I understand. Doing martial arts means you can go into a dojo and fight, or else you're not. Okay? Now, how much do you depend on this aspect of your identity to still keep your pride up? Because it's something beautiful you accomplish, and if you can't do it anymore, you feel hurt in your feelings because you don't have the value that you believed you had when you were a martial artist. Ooh, breathe. The validation that you need in your actions and the things you can do in terms of skill that will tell you what you are. What you do never said what you are. It says what you can do. And that will change. Okay? So to live in the mass of the physical matter of change, I mean, your body changes, you know, over the years. If you're 41, you know that your body changed. You're what, 50 now?
51.
51? I'm 41, yeah. And, oh my God, I know, you know, we change, you know. There is change, there's life, it happens. And it's humiliating when we count on our abilities, because our abilities will change according to the amount of force or mass or speed or the amount of damage that our body can endure. At one point, which is our back does not support certain position anymore. I can't do 1,000 sit-ups anymore. It's not about the abdos. Well, the abdos is about the hernia I got at one point a few years ago, which is now okay, but in the back, something happened. And I do exercises to bring it back. It brought some back, but you know, I'm humiliated by the pride that I have of the super strength I had in my 20s. I was so strong I could lift 100 pounds with a hand, just carry it up the stairs and drop it there, and people would, oh man, this guy's so freaking strong. You know, they were two guys trying to lift the rock and just take it, put it there. And I can't do it anymore. I mean, I did a lot of martial arts and a lot of kuji-in at that point, so of course I was physically strong and the supernatural was there, you know. But it's over. I didn't practice it, and age and life, you know, it will carry you away. Of course, there's a science of immortality, and I do age slower than the average human, but I can't prove it. I'm only 41, you know. It's to my students I taught who are 70-something, and you see them over the years getting younger, that they have credibility about that science of extending lifespan. Because if everything changes, it can eventually change in the way you want it to change. So you could grow younger. And then there's the Taoist teaching of immortality, which is not forever immortality. It's just extending your lifespan in extremely supernatural ways, you know, doubling your life duration. That's another topic, okay? I'm just saying, if you understand that what is the base component of everything, it's that ever-changing consciousness that you can't perceive. It would be an illusion. But when you conceive through an experience and not through an analysis, when you experience it, you can live it and nourish the fire. You still change, but you can orient the change in the duration and direction. And, you know, it's a contemplation. Everything changes. Live with it. So let go of attachment. I don't want to let go of my attachment, Maha, because I love my girlfriend. Well, don't let go of the girlfriend. Just let go of the attachment and still have fun with the girl. It doesn't change anything. Okay? I still want to have desire. You can have desire. If you let go of sexual desire, you're still able to have sex anytime you want. It's just you won't suffer if you want to have sex and you can't, because the girl's not there, you know? We have a lot of ideas of why we hang on to the animal world, when in fact we can rejoice at absolutely everything the world has to offer in a wise, compassionate way with collaborating people who also want to share the same experiences. But if we want something and we can't have it, we suffer in satisfaction. So letting go of desire is not to be forever absence of desire or to be in denial of desire. It's not to be a slave, so you can have fun as much as you want, but not suffer when you're not acting on the desire. When you can't accomplish a desire, just let it go. So there's a lot of technique for every one of those aspects, but this contemplation of JIN is very humiliating at first because you acknowledge that nothing lasts forever. My husband will never leave me. Of course he'll never leave you. He'll eventually die. Okay, nothing is permanent. Okay, stuff happens in life. So, it's humiliating to admit it, but once you accept it, once you live it, there will be an emotional impact on the mourning. Okay, while you're still there, while you still have a relationship to people, while you still have a happy life, I still take care of my kids, I still nourish them, I still feed them, I still pay the bills of the house. I'm responsible of the choices I made, and I love my kids. I don't want them to die, but I know I can mourn them if they do. It won't destroy my life forever. It will just be an awful lot of pain like any parent will live. I know myself. My brother was killed when I was 18 and he was 19. My brother was killed. I mourned in 2 weeks. A real mourning with no denial. I mourned in 2 weeks. That was good. I suffered for 2 weeks. I didn't pretend it was over. There was no repression. I was in hell. It was bad. But I did live it. And a few years after, waves of sorrow came. My brother was dead. A few years after, something happened. But the mourning part, I was done. It was just normal life experience. Oh, I miss my brother. There's still attachment. But the mourning part was, I was not affected anymore by the fact my brother was dead. It's okay, so what's life now that there's no brother? Next, it's just, okay, it changed. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm not telling you you should. I'm telling you you could if you practice enough. Okay? And don't fake it. Don't pretend that you're beyond your life experiences and emotional impacts. Don't. You're there when you're there. And until then, you work on yourself, right? Nothing is permanent. And it's beautiful when it seems to, while it changes, it's still there. While your relationship evolves with someone, there's still a relationship, so you rejoice. Okay? I mean, this belief that nothing is permanent is not a teaching to reject everything because you're afraid to eventually lose it. No. It's about accepting to rejoice of what is there. And when it's gone, you will have a mourning, you go through it, and you go rejoice of what is still there. Or what you came. And you become responsible of your interaction with that life. And it's life. You don't control everything. Actually, that also means I don't control anything. I mean, you can control fire in its locality because you put fire on that candle. So the control you have if the candle's open or not. So that's the locality, okay? But if you build a fire in the forest, in the camp, safely, you don't control where the flames go. You don't control the shape they take. You just manifest that there's a fire there, but you don't control the fire itself. You control the situation around it to allow it to manifest. So if you want a relationship, find a way for a relationship to happen, but you still don't control the relationship itself. Okay? So you let go of that. You just let go of the idea. If you're a control freak, if you're pissed off each time you feel you don't control the situation, that's because you're dreaming. You think that you actually had control once. It never happened. Sometimes things happen in a way you like. So you say, hey, I'm in control. You're not in control. It just happens in a way that you want it because you make sure it would. You still don't control it. So be prudent and manage your life in the best way possible. Everything changes. Don't be so arrogant to provoke a change that is not meant to change now. It will happen. Have a good life, all right? That was JIN. So let's do the practice, all right? Breathe. When you breathe profoundly, it's wise to do as little sound as you can. If you can't prevent the sound, it's okay. But if you go, that's a bit too much, okay? Relax everything inside to make sure that it will be soundless if you can, okay? Without freaking, I mean a deep breath will do something. Mantra. Om Agnaya Yanmaya Swaha, and everything is fire. That's a visualization. Absolutely everything inside is fire. You can feel the flexibility of consciousness that makes all things. Eventually you'll be able to transmute matter and change atomic structure of things because you know it can change. Then the cool superpowers come. Mantra. Om Agnaya Yanmaya Swaha. More virtuous you are, the more power change you have. Om Magnaya Yanmaya Swaha. In 2 hours.